everyone, today we're tackling a super quick holiday project. It is extremely versatile. You can make it big or small. You can use it outdoors in your yard, or you can put it on your mantle or use it as a centerpiece. There are just so many ways you can use it. Before we get started, a quick shout out to my friends at Rust-Oleum for sponsoring this project. Now let's have some fun. Now you could totally use scrap plywood pieces for this project if you wanted to, but I wanted to make some larger pieces, so I bought a sheet of plywood, which I then cut down so that I had 4 pieces of 2 feet by 4 feet each. Okay, so now I need to draw the Christmas tree. For it to be three-dimensional and for it to stand, it needs to be symmetric across the center. So both the pieces, because they're going to be 2 pieces that are going to go together, they need to be exactly identical, and it needs to be symmetric across the center. Now it doesn't need to be a perfectly drawn tree, so I don't need to make like triangles. We can make more organic shapes, but it does need to be symmetric across the center. So to do that, I am going to make a template on paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half. I pretty much freehanded the tree because I wanted a more organic shape, but you could totally draw just simple triangles as well. And then I simply cut the shape out. Next up, I am going to be tracing it, but because it rolls so much, I'm gonna have a few pieces of tape. I used the paper as a template and traced out the Christmas tree onto the plywood. Once I was done tracing, I removed the paper and then I decided to change up the shape of the Christmas tree. Now, don't do this. I will tell you exactly why in just a little bit. In fact, I will show you in just a little bit. Once the sheet of plywood had the Christmas tree on it, I put the other piece underneath it and clamped both the sheets together, making sure that they were well aligned, especially towards the bottom of the Christmas tree. The key here is to make sure that these 2 sheets of plywood stay aligned and clamped throughout the cuts that we're going to be making. And then I grabbed my jigsaw and cut out the entire Christmas tree. Once again, during the entire cut, I had to move the clamps around, but I made sure that both those trees were always aligned so that I would get 2 identical Christmas trees when I was done cutting. Okay, so we've got our 2 Christmas trees and they're identical. And now we need to make a slot in the middle of each of them so we can fit them together to create our 3-dimensional tree. Now to do that, we're going to go halfway from the bottom in one piece and halfway from the top in the other piece. To do that, we have to be really accurate so we can really have a nice fit. And the thickness of the slit is actually going to be the thickness of the plywood. So we are going to do all the measurements and make that cut. So I'm going to start by measuring out the base, which is exactly 23.5. So half of that is 11.75. So we've got 11.75. Now the plywood is 5/8 inch. So this is the center point for the slot. So half of 5/8 inches is 5/16. So we are going to measure 5/16 of an inch on both sides of this mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. So this is the thickness that I need to cut. Okay, So now we're going to go ahead and measure how long this needs to be. And for that, we need to find out how tall this tree is. So we are going to measure that. And that is exactly 47.5. So half of that is 23.75 right here. So that's how long the cut is going to be. Now we're going to make the exact same thickness cut, but on the other piece coming from the top. Now, on this bottom piece, we want the center line to be exactly aligned with this center point. And that is the reason why we wanted the Christmas tree to be completely symmetric. So, to make sure that we get the exact center line, I'm going to align these two trees once again, transfer these measurements onto this tree, and extend it all the way to the top. Now, this is where you're going to notice that I am not really exactly centered, and this is especially because I made those changes to the pattern after I had drawn it out. This, my friends, is the reason why these trees that you create need to be completely symmetric. This is why if you want to ever make changes to the pattern, make that to the paper when it's folded before you trace it onto the plywood. The offset isn't that much, so I kind of decided to live with it and went ahead and cut it out. The final tree is not going to be absolutely perfect, but that is DIY for you. Once the slots were cut, it was time to see if this worked. Which it did. The two pieces slid onto each other super easily and the tree was very sturdy. Of course, the top isn't perfect, but like I said, I'm just gonna live with this for now. In contrast, here is a tree where I was really good about making sure that the pattern that I drew on the paper was transferred onto the plywood, and you can see that the slot is nice and centered and the tree is nice and symmetric. Now it's time to paint, but because all of these are raw plywood, before we apply any kind of paint, we need to apply a few coats of primer. Now for the paint. I am using Rust-Oleum's Imagine line, which has these gorgeous shimmer, glitter, and even glow-in-dark spray paints. There's extreme glitter paint and metallic paint pens. First up, I tried the red glitter paint and I soon realized that it wasn't going to work. I needed a base coat of red. So I did that. And as you can see, I decided to put the trees together to paint because I found that this way I was able to paint them on all sides and get into all the edges and corners a lot easier and faster. While the red dried, I applied the blue shimmer paint, the red chrome spray paint, which is actually my favorite one, gold mirror effect paint, which is meant for glass, but it looks beautiful like this as well. I decided to apply some extreme glitter to the edges of one of the trees. The red was all dried up, so I went ahead and sprayed the glitter, and this time it worked so well. Now for the glow-in-dark paint. I sprayed all the edges of the trees. The paint itself is transparent, so you can still see the base color, but the edges will glow in dark. Now here's a better look at the green shimmer painted tree, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. I used a paint pen to add some patterns to the trees. I also tried to add a paint drip effect using the extreme glitter paint. It didn't quite turn out like I had envisioned it, but it's okay. It looks pretty decent. Here are the final trees. The project is super simple and each tree took me about 30 minutes to make. And then you can just go to town with these beautiful, gorgeous Rust-Oleum Imagine spray paints. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capture the glow-in-dark trees outside because it was way too dark for my cameras to focus. The only way that I could capture it was by walking it through my kitchen to a dark corner so you could see the transition, and the glow isn't bright because it isn't dark enough, but you can definitely see it. It looks really, really pretty in the yard at night though. And that's it. It's a super simple, easy project to kick off your holiday decorating. Thank you so much for watching, and now here are a few more projects that you might enjoy, and I will see you next time.